call the meeting to order. Can we start with a roll call?
Sure. Lemons. Here. Pantera. Here. Plenty.
Here.
All for me present.
Okay, so that's three. You'll notice there's going to be some discussion about the number three. The implications in the short term are we can have no absences and be able to meet and discuss the city's business relative to the library until some vacancies are filled. There are no communications today. I'd like to entertain a moment on the minute, a motion on the minutes. Anybody care to make a motion?
I move to approve the minutes of the June 14th, 2023 regular meeting.
Any second?
I second.
Motion carried. I suppose we need to vote on it, right? Do we need to vote?
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Next is the consent agenda. I had one question in advance, which was answered already for me. I see no need to discuss the consent agenda in any further detail. I think everybody's reviewed it. So I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda, payment of bills, payroll, and financial reports as they were presented in the board package.
I second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. It's time for reports. And first up on reports is Jill Johnson, president of the Friends of the Boise Public Library.
Hi, good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
First of all, I'd like to thank Kira, our secretary, for stepping in for me last month. I'm sure she did a delightful job getting you guys all up to date with what we are doing. What we are looking forward to now is we're hoping to do a sale in September at the Hillcrest branch. Huda Shaltry, the branch supervisor there, is such a great friend to the Friends and is really helping us out. So hopefully stay tuned. We'll confirm dates and start doing the social media push as soon as we have a few more of the logistics ironed out. It's a tough word to say when I haven't had all my coffee. The next thing I wanted to say is we're also planning an auction for later in this year to get rid of or to offer to the public some more items that might be of interest. And then the last thing is we are also looking to expand our board. So if anyone knows of any interested folks, please send their information my way and we can get them interviewed and see if they would like to join us in our mission to support the library. And that is what I have for everyone today.
Any questions for Jill? Jill, how many members are on your board currently and how large are you looking to expand it?
So we currently have 8 and our goal is to have at least 12. So we are definitely looking for a push to increase those numbers. We had a number of long-term board members who rotated off because in 2020, we updated our bylaws to institute for the first time term limits. So now people can only serve for up to 6 years on the board before they take a pause. And so that is that we had a huge roll off because of that. And so we're just looking to get some fresh faces, and we are restructuring our meetings and stuff to make it more friendly for people who are working rather than just people who are retired. Anybody who has come to one of our meetings knows that I'm pretty draconian about keeping our board meetings to an hour. So anyway, we do want to invite people who are still working, who are interested in supporting the library, and maybe doing it in a little bit more of a way that you can also, you know, get in on some good book sales and have some fun interacting with the public and other folks who really enjoy the mission. So.
Okay.
Jill, do you have any materials, an overview or something that we could share with folks that we think might be interested?
We sure do. Where would you like me to send that?
To my email would be great. If you don't have that, we can get that to you.
Perfect.
I'd
Yes.
Share.
I will get in touch with Carrie and we'll get that set up.
Yeah, to all of us.
Oh, great. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay. The next scheduled presenter was Brian Manship, chair of the Boise Public Library Foundation. We got a notice from Brian that he was going to be absent today. And I didn't hear that there's any substitute vendor for it.
There is not.
Okay. All right, that takes us to Library Director Jessica Dorr, Director's report.
Thank you. I do want to acknowledge that we are three right now. We were very saddened with the resignation of Natasha. She, in her tenure on the board, made a real impact on staff. She showed up for our staff. She attended events. She was great at, really connecting with staff. So we've been able to send her our best wishes. And a lot of staff have individually reached out to thank her, particularly people that she got to interact with at the staff appreciation event when she visited the senior center with our home-based services. So I want you to know that while that was unexpected and sad, we made a point of really thanking her for her board service and wishing her the very best. And since she's right up the street, we hope that we will have a close connection in her role at this time. We did have the fortuitous timing of, now I was able to really reach out to the mayor's office and say that now we'll just need to have 2 candidates selected, and I believe that they are doing interviews this week. So we are trying to get the 2 new board positions as confirmed as quickly as possible. And then one of the things I wanted to talk to you a little bit about is, Brian, you had made a suggestion about when we have board fully back to 5 after a meeting to do a tour downtown of this location, so you can see the sorter behind the scenes. You can see some of the work that we're going to be talking about later in terms of some of the investments. You may not have noticed, we've got a giant chute on the back for all the roofing materials. Bathroom stuff's going to start pretty soon, so we'd love. We're hoping that we'll be able to do a board meeting where we maybe have the agenda a little shorter, so we can tour you around so you can actually see some of that construction. So that would be then my question for you is, what other things can we do to help on board? If you remember, you'll get the giant packet, we'll update that. We've got a whole bunch of strategic planning materials, the basic summary, the new strategic framework for impact, reports that look so beautiful. But I would just love some thoughts on how we would onboard or materials that you would suggest that we provide for our new members.
Now or later?
Anytime.
The library tours was incredibly impactful to me, so I think having them go together and do that, I recommend that be standard practice now for everybody. It's fun, but also really great to see the individual nature of each of those libraries, how that works. And then the other thing I find incredibly relevant now, considering things that happened at the legislature, was I think the meeting that we got to have with legal in particular around policies and around if some of us have concerns for things, what is that process? I think that's a really important thing to make sure we highlight in someone's onboarding so that they're kind of fully aware of those things as they do.
Great, that's available.
I think it'd be fun to do a little, I don't know if it's appropriate, but other boards have done like a little retreat with the 5 of us, staff to get to know each other. Are we allowed to do that? Maybe not.
It's probably.
Okay, never mind.
Yep.
Forget that idea.
But if there are ways to connect individual board members, like when they're appointed, if you want to say somebody at lunch and talk about, that may be a way of making some of those connections. But when the 5 of you are together, talking about the library, it is the public's business, so we do it in public eye. I'm quoting Ed Jewell there.
Yes, thank you.
I was happy about that.
Thank you.
I mentioned a couple times, it took me a year watching the whole process, putting it all together. And it could be a good supplement to the onboarding material. There's something like a flow chart or something that shows how the various pieces come together to make a whole. And make it a little bit easier for people to understand what all is going on, what the process of working through is in the first year.
I like that. That's sort of the rhythm of the annual cadence.
Yeah.
What when budget stuff comes up, what are policy, we can look at putting something like that together.
Okay, any other?
Wait, no, I'm sorry. And the last thing, one more thing. And it's a great one. Last night, City Council had a public hearing on the FY 24 budget. And there was a great discussion about libraries in it. Councilmember Halliburton's here with us. He made a comment about how, wow, usually, this is one of the most important things that council does, and usually very few people came. There's a great discussion about libraries. And that included Mark Salisbury presented to council a petition that has 835 citizens of Boise signing for a library in West Boise. And so that really jump-started a great discussion about where we are in our strategic planning process. How we really are on when our key finding was wanting to have robust facilities and welcoming safe spaces for everybody with equitable access, and how that then became, our first strategic goal is increasing impact. We had a request for funding for a facilities plan in that. So the discussion then became with council and the public about what should be in that plan, timing, what's its scope, and how do we make sure that we really have that same robust community engagement, so that we are coming up with a really comprehensive plan that includes facilities, technology, staffing, materials. And so there was just I thought it was a really great discussion. My takeaway is, it was great to see a lot of interest in library services. I think it really shows how we've been listening to the community, and how particularly that expanding access work is just really a great opportunity to build on that. And I think we will really want to have opportunities for you when that budget was approved last night. So moving forward, which means we will be able to now start scoping that facilities plan, and we want to make sure we've got your input, and then we want Marshall Council's input, because there were some real important discussions about how do we balance technology, facilities, how can we serve people, as many people as possible, as effectively as possible, but also what are some of the scenarios we can look at in terms of how we would actually move forward as we build, what's our gap now, and what will our gap be in 20 years. So I thought it was a great discussion. I don't know if you would like to add anything to that.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, I would add that you did a great job, answering the questions people brought forward to the table. And we did have at least 8 or so people testify about libraries, and specifically libraries in West Boise. There was $300,000 that was approved for this facilities plan that you all will, I think, start working on with the city library staff here pretty soon. And I think that council comes in a little bit later in the process as far as looking at the facilities plan before staff and the board get a first crack at it. But I think that what I saw from council was a desire to make sure that when that facilities plan discussion is going on, that both geography, as far as Boise goes, the different locations of town, and potential gaps in library service be part of that scoping. I don't know that we necessarily have the ability to require you to do that up front. We kind of come a little bit later in the process. But I would just vocalize that there's interest and desire from council to make sure that when we're doing some of the scoping, that when we're looking at the types of facilities, where they're located, all sorts of different things, the geography, and some of the gaps potentially in service we take into account. But again, really, really positive. Usually you have people coming in and telling you all the things that they don't like, things that they want you to stop doing. Not always. Lots of people come and say, you want more libraries, more parks, you want these things in these areas of town, which I think is great and it's super exciting, and it kind of sets you all up to have, I think, a really, really exciting opportunity on this board to move through a robust facilities plan with a whole bunch of outreach that will really complement that strategic plan.
What's the definition of West Boise? Is it aligned with the new legislative district lines of Boise?
Yeah, I mean, we've got our different city council members as well. You can kind of really, think about Eagle Road, sort of kind of the western edge of most of our city, yeah. And that can extend all the way south, extend kind of the corner of the old Highway 5. But really, I think when we think of West Boise, we like to use McMillan, kind of Eagle Road, kind of to Milwaukee-ish sort of area as a very, very broad sort of area. But in the planet, just to run over, there's some geographical areas that can kind of show, distance-wise between where people live and where there might be library services. We do stuff really similar with our parks to try to figure out what's the closest proximity to folks in parks and try to look at that from an equity standpoint, hoping that we can eventually get everybody within 10 minutes walk to a park. And so in the West Boise area, kind of along that Eagle Road, Houston, McMillan area is probably one of the larger gaps. And also probably southeast Boise and southwest Boise, some gaps over there as well. So some things to be taken into account, when we look at geography and service and what that may look like, different types of facilities and what they would need. And I think that the desire for programming, the different types of programming should help inform you all on what those facilities might look like.
We will make sure to send you a link to the YouTube recording so that you can watch it, because I think it's just a great discussion. It's also really fun to have people talking about why libraries are important to them, what they want to see in their libraries. So I think it's worth the time. You could skip some of the, there's a very comprehensive discussion from Erin Lamoria about how the budget was put together and all the pieces. We'll send you where the library discussion starts so you can see that. And then finally, yep, we do have for you, this is a draft, which we were able to print some of the how it looked. As we said, we wanted to have something that looked really nice for the public that explains our strategic framework. We did a small run of it. There's just a couple little things that we found in terms of the layout that we want to tweak. But we are now working on the plan to start really sharing this with the public in August. But we wanted you guys to get to see this first, because we're really proud of it. And we are excited to be able to talk about it.
Anything else?
No, I'm good. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions for Jessica?
I don't have questions, but I just wanted to say this looks great, and I think the content is really great. And it'll be such a good thing to be able to show people and have around. So thanks for working on that.
Yeah. So what'll happen next is we're actually using this as the base piece, and then we'll have like a one pager. We're going to do some bookmarks. We'll do some slides in our locations. We will, now that we sort of have the look for it, we'll be able to have lots of different materials for both the staff, because we want to make sure staff really get it.
Any other questions? Yes. Okay. The next item on the agenda is a discussion of section 4 of the policies and regulations. You may remember last month we didn't conclude discussion on policy 4.03. There was some redrafting required. And here to take us through that work and some new items is Joni Hansen, Bound Crossing Branch Manager. Welcome, Joni.
Thank you. Yeah, as you said, we are talking about section 4 today, policy 4.03. I'm actually going to let Sarah Kelly Chase talk about some of the additions we're going to make based on the discussion from last month and things that were going on. The other policies, so policy 4.04, security, which encompasses regulation 4.04A, rules of conduct, and 4.04B, the security appeals process. Policy 4.05, use of technology, including regulations on hardware and software and prohibited access. 4.06 about public internet access and safety with regulations for internet access via personal device and via internet access via library device, and then policy 4.07 confidentiality of records. And we're just trying to get through everything before the end of the fiscal year. So lots of stuff. We are actually not making any recommendations on those last items for changes. But noting that for the regulation 4.04A, the rules of conduct, we are looking to reintroduce it and look at it again early in fiscal 24 so that we can continue to make some more updates to that policy. And with that, I will turn it over to Sarah to talk about 4.03.
Thanks, Jody. That was a wonderful introduction. And I'm sorry you got the dig covering all the things. So like Brian said, we're bringing 4.03 back to you all for fees. Phil had made a comment that that first mini paragraph there seemed disjointed to be there because we already covered it. We agreed and struck it. So that is what we're bringing back to you. And then Brian, you had some questions at the time as well about how we look at fees and how we benchmark. We haven't re-benchmarked recently. Like when we did the library card fee, we did look, we're not the highest, we're not the lowest. Because we are a public library and because access is so important, we try not to move it up very much at a time because we don't want it to become cost prohibitive. So your example, you talked about genealogy research and that it was $15. For your interaction, that feels cost prohibitive for us. And so I don't imagine us ever going that high. I recognize there's this disconnect of needing to bring in funds for the city. And because of our mission, we need to make access the forefront piece. So while we want to recover our costs, we're not looking to go so far that it keeps people from using the services. Does that make sense?
I understand your point.
Okay, and then you had also asked about forms. We do have forms, so you click on it and I can we can give you the link. It's on our website if you're research. So you can ask your question and then gives the fee scale of what it looks like to get X number of things or how you get it delivered to you. Does that help?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, was there anything else related to that?
No, I thought 4.03 looked good with all the changes.
Okay, great. Does anyone have any other questions about any of the other pieces? Oh, you're all in this room. No offense to you all.
So I think the action item we have is to vote on the revised policy 4.03. Correct?
Correct.
Is there a motion to approve 4.03 that we're reviewing now?
I move to approve policy 4.03 with the edits made.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. And now we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is a capital projects update by Sean Wilson. He is the City of Boise Municipal Facility Program Senior Manager. Watching you on videos.
Hopefully good. All right, so President, board members, just want to give a quick update on where we're at the capital investments. Starting to see stuff show up. That's what I mentioned that earlier. It's going to escalate rapidly. About a month, we start blocking out full floor restrooms and some other things. So, all right.
Might take a second to be control.
Okay.
Doesn't work, just let me know.
It's not working. Okay. All right, just kind of the forefront, I want to keep this kind of in the back of the mind as we talk about investments. This kind of central gateway area of Boise, there's a ton of stuff happening around the library. So as we're looking at spending, we're also looking at like, oh, what else is happening around here and how can we coordinate with other investments that are happening to make sure we're getting the best sort of larger place that we can. And so just kind of want to keep throwing that out there, kind of keep it in mind as we talk about investments. Major repair and replacement, MRM we call it, and remodel work. So facility improvements, this is kind of sort of a summary of everything. This comes from a lot of documents. We did condition assessments, seismic assessments, some planning stuff, looked at the auto sorters, saving time for circulation, folks, a whole bunch of stuff, but this is kind of what we're getting into, and this is still another like 3-year journey on doing all this. So it's a lot of work. It's an 80,000 square foot facility. Takes a lot to keep it going. We talked about the time scale. We're looking at, hey, at least, we know this needs to be 10 years. A lot of these investments go further. Like, for example, the roof. We know the roof's going to last 25 years, but we need one now because it's a very important part of protecting the assets. All part stuff. So a lot of stuff. Site improvements. Pulling this out a little bit separately because we're trying to do some temporary fixes. You see the parking lot, everything we pull in, it's pretty rough shape. We want the planning and facilities planning kind of take its course before the huge investment because we had to pull drainage. We can turn it's a really large thing, and so we want to let facilities planning catch up before the large investment. We are looking at some smaller investments with Emily. Kind of it's a timing issue. There's a lot going on, lots of center houses they're building. We're taking up parking for the roof project. We're taking up more parking for the restroom projects. We have CCDC project, kind of back to that central gateway thing. CCD project hopefully firing out right when the Watson Center project stops. And so in terms of disruptions to this area, we're trying to be very sensitive. So we haven't totally settled on the timing yet.
Still negotiating.
On the parking repairs. The temporary auto sorter. I don't know if y'all had a chance to look at it, but it is pretty cool. The only downside is that desk that blocks the window, so the kids can't see it real easily. But turns out it sounds like it's working fine. The bugs worked out real quick, and so yeah, that's a fantastic quick win we got on some of these investments. Roofing, so we're doing roofing and we're up on the parapet, put some railing in for safety and some other stuff. On the left, you can see back behind the library, staff parking, big chute, throwing stuff off, the dumpster hauling it out. And on the right, you kind of see the railing up on top. So roofing is full steam ahead. Hopefully get that done. I can't remember the schedule, but a month or two. October. 3 months. So there'll be a little pain for a while in the parking. One other thing we got done up on the 4th floor, the YS storage area, there was a non-structural wall. We took that out, pulled that, did some asbestos abatement. There's a lot of like the mastic that pulled the carpet down, asbestos abated the whole area. Took a wall out, kind of expanded that space for more uses, whether it's use services or whatever needs the library identifies to support the programming and other things. And then implementation / other items, main stairwell flooring, in construction soon, hopefully. We're looking at different options. Carpet's starting to come up on that connection between the 1-story and 4-story. And so we're trying to figure out, okay, how do we manage that? Stair railing repairs, and this is like all over the railing on the main entrance coming in, the back of house, railings, everything. It's there's a bunch of like ADA type work that needs to be done on it, between like spacing and height, with all sorts of very specific things. We did go out for bids. We got really, really high bids, so we decided to pull back and wait until maybe that trade contractor has capacity, shop it around, and then go out to bid again later. Hopefully, saving some budget for other projects. 4-story restrooms, plumbing, fire pumps, bid opening today. I forgot to correct that. That was actually a little while ago. We did, it's about a $1.5 million project that's taking care of all the plumbing in the shaft, building, a bunch of 40s plumbing, starting to leak everywhere. We're gonna fix it. ADA in all the restrooms, and since we're tearing everything apart, just updating finishes and everything in the restrooms, creating a family restroom. And what else? Fire pump. They have a fire pump that's beyond its useful life. The insurance companies they better change that fast. They've been telling me that for years, so we're going to update that. That contract for construction will be on council next Tuesday. So on the consent agenda. So approximately 1.5, and then I think we'll probably start early August. So, but we really have to work through logistics and some of the other things before that. started blocking out whole areas of restrooms at the library. Parking lot minor repairs, talked about that. It's kind of a pending thing. We have some remodel work, fourth floor full model abatement work. We're anticipating bidding later this summer. And it's kind of packaged with that restroom work. So by the time we get to the fourth floor, a lot of the restroom upgrades, ADA, all that stuff, plumbing is connected to the HVAC, and that's connected to the rest of the fourth floor. So we're trying to time it so we can get that work done. So that's other work with the manual for restrooms are wrapping up next year. So construction will just continue to go for quite a while here. First floor last remodel restrooms design starts this summer. So there's a lot of ADA issues with restrooms there. Again, the circ desk, it's just kind of a ton of little stuff around there. And while we're doing all that work, we're trying to do it, look at it, what's an efficient way to also freshen the space up so we can improve YS, which my understanding is the business area library. So hopefully get that going, design, starting this summer. And again, all of this will have to be timed, so we do the design, but we can't do everything at once, like block out. Unless you want to close the library just for me for 6 months, which I don't think is a good idea. So we're trying to really time it, and so that'll be tail end of, hey, we get all the restrooms done, that takes maybe a year, and then we start the fourth floor, and then maybe we start doing just some of the pieces of the first floor. So that's kind of the plan. Implementation other, I just always put this one in, what to expect with encumbering and spending. I think President Brandy brought up, hey, we're going to be rolling over funds. So we got, dollars allocated. It's an MRM and rolls for the next fiscal year. We are encumbering them in these big chunks. So sometimes it looks like we're not spending, but it's like, okay, now we got a big construction contract, 1.5, encumber it. But it's really, these are one-off projects. This is like a program, to do all these major repairs, maintenance of this building, take care of everything. So you start seeing the steeper part of the curve. That's why I mentioned the 1.5, the auto sorter, there's another little one, and then also we're trying to jump into the big construction contract. So the steeper part of the encumbering curve. Construction might be challenged. We're still seeing them, like the stair rail, that's why they pulled back. It's like, if we can't spend that much, but it's not as bad as it was the past couple of years. So previously, say we had 10 trades on a job. Last couple of years, 7 of them were crazy and 3 were normal. Now we're down to like 2 or 3 out of the 10 are crazy, and then 7 to 8 are normal. So it's starting to get a little better. For example, like on the restrooms, some stuff going to council next week. We didn't get any bids for painting. Nobody wanted to bid it. So put an allowance in, try to navigate that best we can. But only 1 out of a whole number of trade contracts problematic. So it's good. Certainly stable. And then inflation, supply chain, we're still seeing some stuff. Fortunately, we had that good inflation report this morning. I don't know if anybody saw that. So that's kind of positive news for us doing this future work. Hopefully things are stabilizing for us. Mentioned operations coordination critical. I think Emily spent time with the superintendent probably every day.
Brian and I are friends.
Yeah. So that's always top of mind. External coordination critical, same thing. Want to make sure that's back to that, all the work going around this area. Can we do parking, lots of offices, just sort of making sure all of our stakeholders and partners in this area are in the loop. Future fiscal year plans. So this would be kind of the next this fiscal year 24-25. 1-story plumbing. We probably will take care of some of that when we do some of the remodel and EDA work in the first story. But that's fortunately 70s plumbing, so it's a little bit of 40s plumbing, but it's still at the end of its useful life. Exterior envelope, we might actually do that next fiscal year. Again, that's envelope protection, brick, the grout, all the stuff, just to make sure the building's sealed. Window replacement, 1 paint around areas. That's not hypercritical. It's not like it's failing, but from an efficiency standpoint, it's nice. Electrical system, That's probably in fiscal year 25, and that's a regut of the main electrical system. So we have panels, again, that are 50+ years old. Which if you do the tours of the building, take you back and house tours to see some of the old stuff, but it's kind of the main system from Idaho Power to just distribution. So it's a lot of like all the big gear, big stuff that you want to do that. So that needs to be getting in place, lighting, just in terms of energy efficiency. And we're looking at potential for like grants or other ways to fund this one actually, because there's a lot of non-LED lighting in the building. We're starting to see some ARPA funding and other things, be some potential for grants for the energy efficiency to get all the rest of the lighting on LED. And then the big one's the site replacement. I think I mentioned that it's just a huge project. We're trying to push back a little bit. Right now it's programmed in for fiscal year 27, I think, to take care of. And that should give us enough time with the planning horizon to understand what's happening on the bigger picture of the facilities before they make a really large investment. It's Emily's slide. I'll just keep pulling it up because
It all still holds. We're talking to partners really regularly. We sent out a Friday email to the staff, just letting them know everything that's going on. We have a construction superintendent on site. We do speak pretty much daily to see how things are going. And then Lindsay, our project manager, our construction superintendent, Josh, from CE Community Engagement, and myself meet weekly. And it's just kind of what's going on, who needs to know, who's saying and how. So I think we've done a good job communicating. Things always change, but so far the staff has been really flexible. So we're doing our best to keep everybody informed.
And with that, I forgot to introduce Lindsay Erb at the beginning. So she's our senior project manager at Public Works. So I could take the credit for like, hey, it's all working, but she's actually the one making sure stuff gets executed, battling with the contractors and all the good stuff that comes with construction. So, thank you. With that, any questions? Support?
Comprehensive overview. Are all the projects, the last few slides scoped already, or the things that are on the calendar that says it's due for long, or are they scoped out in detail?
President Board Member Speed, they're not in detail, they're not scoped. We did the condition assessment that just identified the electrical systems past its useful life. Like each building, like replacing it. So as we're looking at it, the program we're designing kind of as we go, and so not fully scoped. If that makes sense.
Yeah, but there was an inspection that says we need this, we need this.
Yeah. Not very detailed inspection.
Okay. All right, any other questions for Sean? Thank you very much for the overview.
Thank you.
That takes us to new business items. The first one is the library facility public art assessment. And here to address that topic is Tilly Bub, the City of Boise cultural planner. Tilly, welcome to our meeting, our special guest today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Boise's cultural planner. And prior to that, I was the public art manager for 19 years. So I have the pleasure of developing public art for the library. And so I'm very familiar with the program. What I'm gonna provide for you today, what I've been doing is planning for the public art program overall. First, I addressed the public works departments, and then I just completed a plan for the Boise airport. And now I'm turning my attention to the general fund, which are the general tax dollars. So in the context of that, I'm looking at library, but I'm going to give you a context for all of the general funds, just so you have a sense of kind of where the library fits within that. Not working yet. So there we go. So for collection definition, so it's all the public art that's funded that is the types of projects we review are external public permanent sculptures, murals, paintings. We have the Boise Visual Chronicle, which is a collection of artworks that are portable, that are about Boise by Boise artists. Portable works, which are portable artworks that don't neatly fit into the Boise Visual Chronicle. We have works that are funded by Capital City Development Corporation or redevelopment agency that are then donated to the city of Boise. And then we have artworks that are donated by the city of Boise, donated to the city of Boise. So the general fund excludes anything that's enterprise funded, and that's anything that's at the airport or anything that's funded by the Public Works Department. So the purpose of this assessment is to really better understand what we've collected, to know where these works are located, to understand how they're being maintained and conserved, and then to also identify what are the omissions, what are we not doing that we should be paying attention to. And the goal is to make a plan for the future of public art so that we can meaningfully invest in a strategic way. So what I looked at was, you might have stand up.
No.
Having was tortured by Catholic school, I can't sit down. Pardon me. So what I looked at was the money, where we spent money, the locations where we put our public art. What are the types of locations, the content of the artwork, the scale, artist demographics, and then any works that should be deaccessioned in our collection. So this is the big picture image. In our general fund, we've got just over $4.5 million. In our public works department, we have just under $1 million, and Boise Airport, again, under $1 million. And then I've also listed the James Castle collection separately. Those were works that were donated to us, and that's what we called an appraised price rather than a cost that we made. So I kept that one out a little bit separately. But you can see that the general fund is really the majority of our collection. So then when I just look at the general fund by itself, I started to break it out. Other sites are streets or partner sites, and a lot of those are Capital City Development Corporation projects that have been gifted to us. That's the largest category. Parks and Recreation is the other one, which makes sense because there's so many parks to have art. Police and Fire, and that's primarily at City Hall West, where we made a big investment when they moved there. City Hall Downtown. Arts and History Cultural Sites, which are the James Castle site and the Irma Heyman House. And then you can see Library is down here at 159,000, which part of that reason that we're at such a low rate is that we had planned to do significant investment in public art when we built a new library branch. And because that didn't happen, we're really behind the game in terms of serving libraries. The Boise Visual Chronicle, that collection that I mentioned, at 255,000. Then Portable Works, our Traffic Box collection, I listed out as well. Those works technically are temporary as they only last up to about 10 years, but that's a program that we continue to invest in. And then the appraised value of the Castle House. So that gives you a sense of kind of where the library fits in our overall general fund. This is just doing a quick description of the purchase value, budget, and funding sources. So our primary source of funds is the City Capital Fund. Secondarily, Capital City Development Corporation. In the past, we also have received some investment in public art from Greater Boise Auditorium District. They helped to start the Boise Visual Chronicle. And then we also have received some private donations over the years. And that's primarily when a developer and CCDC go in on a project together, and then that artwork is donated to the city. So that's our primary place we receive private donations. So then I was interested to look at it by scale. Like, how many big projects do we have? Over 100,000, we only have 7 projects that are over 100,000. Between 50 and 99, we have 10 projects, or 8%. Between 25 and 50,000, we have 20% of our collection with 23 works. And then between 10 and 25, we have 42 works, which is 37%. And then under 10, 31 works. So you can see that our collection is it's more works at a lower dollar number. And this is actually a strategic decision that we made early on in the forming of the public art collection, because historically before 1998, the city did not invest at all in public art. So, and the first couple of projects out of the gate were really big projects, Boise Wings and the River Sculpture. those received a lot of complaints from citizens because they were so visible and they were so new. So the city council and leaders at the time asked us to focus on smaller projects dispersed throughout the city and more neighborhood-based projects. So that has been a particular strategy that has resulted in the kind of scale numbers that you're looking at now, which I find fascinating. So just to give you an idea of the works over $100,000, the pink tree is our most recent one. Lincoln was actually
My granddaughter loves that.
I love it too.
I love it too. It's one of my favorites. I love that you can swing on it. How awesome it is to have some of you can swing on. Lincoln was actually a donated piece. The fire memorial was, we chose to put all dollars that were from capital improvements and fire stations into one single project. That's what the fire department wanted to do. So it gives you kind of a sense of where those dollars have gone and the scale of those projects.
One on the upper left, I just assumed that was not a city piece of art. I assumed that was a building owner.
And that's a perfectly reasonable assumption. That was one of these projects where the developer put money in and Capital City Development Corporation put money in. We managed that project and did it jointly, and then it was gifted to the city of Boise. So we own that little piece of the facade.
It doesn't steam anymore.
That's correct. We'll leave it right there. Yeah. So locations of general fund public art. It's at city public facilities, parks, partner facilities like elementary schools or transit stations, and then transit corridors. So we have 15 facilities with general fund public art. So our libraries are a significant part of that, our city halls, fire stations, our zoo, community centers, and our other recreation centers and our cultural sites. But again, you can see how important, I think all of this in context is really key. You can see that our library branches are a significant number of our public facilities. And so again, that's why we're really turning our attention to the libraries. There are 20 different parks with gluten-free public art. Sorry. 14 partners sites. And I'm just kind of flipping through these. It's just really to give you a context. And then we have done some investment on the green belt, some street toppers, some pedestrian meetings, some roundabouts. Okay, now we get to what we're really focused on here is the library. So I'm going to present to you a more in-depth picture of what we have at the library. And then my goal today is to actually get some feedback from you on what you're interested in seeing. I'm going to create a plan for the different library branches that gives some broad strokes for what we might invest in. So the main library, we have a $28,000 investment. The Eustican Pole and Bound Crossing have the most because we did a single public art project with the investment of that particular location, with the building of those locations. And then Hillcrest and Collister, we did some small public art projects when those buildings were built. And I'll have some slides where we see what those are. We also have some rotating Boise Visual Chronicle artworks at all of the locations to varying degrees based on availability of site. So at our main library, we have these three pieces. The first, Natural Bridge, was a donated piece. The second, the Read and Ride and the Pedals to Pages, the bike block area, that was done in 2003. So you can see those are really old investments. The library at Hillcrest, we commissioned Bill Lewis to do a series of paintings that were based on images connected to the library. And then at the Collister, we commissioned Stephanie Baking to do a series of pieces that are installed throughout the library. At Bound Crossing, I'm spacing her name right now, but this piece at the library, and then Janet Zweig.
Yes, Vox Pop.
Okay, Vox Poplar, and then Judith and Judith Collins and Dale Collins, her husband, did these glass pieces. So in looking at this geographic dispersion, I also put this in to get a sense of neighborhoods. So one of the things I think is really important about the library branches is that you're in different neighborhoods. And the majority of our collection is in downtown Boise. So trying to invest more in neighborhoods, I think, is another opportunity we have with the libraries. So I had this map so that you could see the concentration of public art, and the upper right is not a library location. If you're wondering, why do we have a library location in the foothills? No, that's just a identifying symbol. But you can see kind of that dispersion and how the libraries add to that dispersion. So when I look at the content of the libraries, I see, actually this is overall, a focus on history, nature, places and site, different individual people, culture, activities and abstractions. So I want you to get your mind thinking about content of the library. What's important content that to share? I did a assessment of what people have we made art about. So there are groups of people that we have art about. We've made art about firefighters and police officers, Mexican American people, the Basques, Chinese business owners. We have some elementary kids that we've worked with. We have art that focuses on suffrage issues, those lost in 9/11. African people, Native Americans, Oregon Trail pioneers, and then some works that focus on diversity issues. And then specific people is a fairly short list. And again, these are all things that have been fairly opportunistic. It has not been strategic. So the reason I'm really calling these out is so that we can really think more strategically about who and what we want to make public art about. So we've done work, we have art about Anne Frank, Kristen Armstrong, the Olympic medal winner, James Castle, the artist that we have a cultural site for, Irma Heyman, who we also have a cultural site for, Jesus Urquidez, who is a leader in the Mexican American community, Cecil Andrus, former governor, Orly Nelson, who was a filmmaker and loved birds, Julia Davis, wife of the founder of our park, Abraham Lincoln, Mr. Bagley, who was involved in the founding of the Greenbelt, and then Gene Harris, a musician. And then I noted also some artwork that's in our city that is not in our collection, but it's in our city, and the public doesn't necessarily discern whether we own it or not. So Senator Bora, Esther Simplot, Lewis and Clark, and our Nez first chief and his son, Governor Studenberg, Abraham Lincoln, and the suffrage movement, again, at the Capitol. So this gives you a sense of what we have commemorated. And I just want to get your mind thinking, and if it doesn't come up at this meeting, it's something you can always share with me later, or share with Jessica, and she can share with me. So who is important to the city, or what group of people is important that we haven't made art about that you'd like to see? So the other thing I looked at was content that reinforces particular places or activities. So entryways, we have things that focus on the weather, on particular sports, on children's play, our contemporary environments, reading and library environments, the history and celebration of transit at our transit center, the history of particular businesses, Boise State University, our built environment. We have some things that focus on old signs, Barber Park, Vox Poplar talks about Barber Park and the history of the Ustick town site. Some other things that we've done focus on neighborhood identity, reading or writing, nature, trees, our elements, seasons, wildlife, star constellations, and then the Fibonacci sequence. So again, this is really pretty broad, but it just gives you some places to connect with, to understand kind of what our collection sort of represents right now. And this is basically telling the public about who we are as a city. In terms of our demographics, we have 111 works commissioned, permanent works, and those are made by 94 different artists. So some artists have made more than one piece. The majority of those are men, 58%, but it's not terrible, 42% are women. 68% are local and 32% are national. 93% are white and 7 identify as non-white. So I think from these statistics, we can see we do have a pretty good representation of local artists. We definitely should have more works, look at more works of people of color. I'm going to skip through this. They're just some works that we've deaccessioned, and then we have a couple of other pieces that we're looking at. Deaccessioning is when we decide that the work no longer is either to be maintained or doesn't fit the site anymore because the site's changed and we have to let it go. And then in our traffic program, we have 235 boxes. We try to, like this one here, that's near the Ustick Library, to make the boxes relate to that particular site. So this program has really high dispersion throughout the city with a concentration downtown. That shows the dispersion of traffic boxes. And we've tried to place at least one near all the libraries. And then this shows you, gives you an idea of the gaps. So there's still a lot of gaps geographically and where we don't have public art. The Chronicle, again, some of these works are in the library branches. We'll continue to add to that collection. And I had the pleasure of meeting with the library branch managers, and each of them identified some potentially new sites for Visual Chronicle works. Those are the mediums. I'm going to just skip over this so we can get to some of our conversation. Mediums of our portable works. Okay, maintenance issues is something that we do need to think about because our collection is aging. We have 2 really fantastic people, Elagio and spacing on names today. She's new. Sorry. We have 2 great people who are focusing on maintenance issues. So maintenance can come from vandalism, from human interaction that's positive, but yet causes some difficulty with the work. We have a growing collection and we don't have a lot of storage space. Changing site owners, some growth and development that's happening, the building that's happening that we want to make sure that we're accommodating. So we have an eye on the need to maintain. And then education as well, providing information about the collection. We have a robust website where you can connect to that connection and learn more about the pieces or where they are. We also have some do tours, brochures, identifying other ways that we might do educational programs specific to the library of public art, something else for us to think about. In looking at national trends, there's a lot of public art that's addressing climate change issues and environmental themes. There's public art with community social justice purposes, particularly in the last 3 years with the pandemic and with issues like George Floyd. We've seen an increase in social justice artwork. Artists embedded in department residencies. For instance, we've seen in Seattle, they had an artist embedded in their City Light program that would really focus on issues around that library, around that City Light program. I'd love to see artists in residence at the libraries. That might be something that we can consider. Large scale city identity public art like the Pink Tree. So some things that are more big and focal point. Temporary public art pieces where the city doesn't have to own the piece and it's temporary. A lot more murals and more place-based or place-making project designs that are really about sites. Some things that I identified that we might feature in the future. We would really love to focus more on our indigenous populations, Latinx people, Chinese, African American, the refugees that have settled here since the 1970s. We've been looking at the military's relationship to Boise City and place, particularly at the airport, architectural history in neighborhoods, our relationship to our natural environment that's really unique, the ridge to rivers connection, the greenbelt, the foothills, the river, entrances and exits to our city, and then neighborhood gathering spaces and placemaking efforts. So you can kind of think about where the library fits into those possibilities or what we might add to this list. So you are my top next step, which is sharing this analysis with key stakeholders to get feedback. I've been interviewing, as I mentioned, the branch library directors who've been very gracious with their time, and I'm currently compiling their comments. I'm also talking internally to our public art team. Stephanie Johnson is our public art manager. So I'm doing the planning, but I'm not implementing. Stephanie will be the implementer. And then we'll be eventually bringing this to city council to get their city council and mayor feedback. So the questions that I have for you, so I know that was a little breathless, pardon me. It's a big picture, all thrown at you at once. What I'm interested in understanding about the library from your perspective, what has worked really well and what has not worked well about the existing art in the libraries? At which sites do you want to see public art or changing exhibitions? And then what kind of content would you like to see? And I'm happy to have you, is there anything else about public art that you'd like to share with me? What I want to make sure is that your input is in the plan that I'm working on as well. So with that, I will take a breath and pause for someone else to share.
I was a little uncertain at first whether public art included indoor art, wall-mounted pictures, paintings, things on walls, and it does. I think the slide
Yes.
told me that it does.
Yes.
I'm just curious on the dollar value. What portion is monuments, statues, structures versus wall-mounted indoor art?
It's a so our collection is about overall is about $7 million, and I would say under $500,000 is the wall-mounted art.
Okay.
So it's a small portion of it. One thing I would like to note is that particularly at the main library, there's a lot of wall-mounted art that isn't identified as part of our collection. So that's one thing. In talking to your library leadership team, the Arts Commission was created in '78. We weren't created as a full department until 2008. So prior to that, the library acquired things or was donated artwork that wasn't identified as part of our overall collection. And one of my recommendations is actually to do an assessment of all the art that's at the library branch that is not in our collection, or the things that are of archival importance, and determine what should be accessioned into the city's art collection, so that we can help manage that for the library, and so that we can rotate things and we can have new things that are here. So that is one of my primary recommendations.
But for the purposes of answering your questions
Mhm.
relative to art at the library, we're talking about the things that are inside on walls, mounted in general.
We're talking about inside mounted on walls. We're talking about murals that could happen here. So there's a children's mural, for instance, in the youth services area that I happen to grow up with. But are there other murals that can happen in other locations? We're looking at outdoor locations. There could be sculptures. The front desk could be a public art project. That could be a artist designed sculptural functional object. So there's really, we're talking about all these different categories. When I was at Bound Crossing, we looked at the exterior site for sculptures, locations for sculptures that could go out there. So it's really open-ended.
Okay.
I had one couple comments. I think you mentioned this a little bit, but I seem to recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the staff here did some art for summer reading last year. Is that?
For the tracker?
Yeah. So I don't know, I love the idea of incorporating some staff because it seems like there's some talented artists like right here in this building and the library branches. So I thought that was really cool to see and wonder if that could be incorporated. And then the other thing I was thinking of is when they did the library card designs, I
yes.
loved those, absolutely loved those. So I would love to either take those same things and incorporate them somehow or do something similar again. Because those I thought turned out so neat.
Yeah, and I also forgot to mention the mural that's on the back of this library location that we did in partnership with the Comic Art Festival.
Awesome.
which just got repaired too. These were other very tall numbers.
Yeah, so those
Yeah.
came to mind, and then as far as content, I mean, the concept of library has so much rich ideas for concept and what reading means to people and all the lands and places you go when you read. So there's, I think, so much really cool content that could come out of just what does reading mean to you and what does the library mean to you. And then I liked your comment about kind of functional art, and I really love that as I'm traveling like through the city. Like I love as you're coming out the tunnels of the Greenbelt now having that bright pop of art. So I love the idea of just incorporating it into the space in that way.
Thank you.
Really offering is the more of and from each neighborhood and library location, the better. I mean, I think of all the interesting things I've seen going to the different neighborhoods, the globe that gets changed into different things like that have that unique contribution and perspective. And then as we think about also the representation piece, which is a big deal, you know, having 93% of the art community being from white folks, a lot of our neighborhoods are really unique and have really great diverse perspectives. So the more kind of and from representation specific to those different locations, because each library is so beautifully unique, I think the more special that feels, and people come to recognize that and feel seen in that, which is a big part of the inclusion component that is in that strategic framework. So that seems obvious, but I think being really intentional about that is important.
One item, you showed a traffic box with a picture of it. And I have rarely seen anything like that anyplace else in my travels. And I find it unique. And I know there's one guy, Randy Van Dyke, who's made a lot of downtown, a lot of traffic boxes, particularly birds. I think taking something mundane and making it appealing and attractive, turning it into art is something unique. It's not that big a deal. It's not something beautiful meant to last forever, but it's fun. I see a lot of people downtown stopping, looking at them, talking about it.
Thank you. Yeah, we love our traffic box program. And there, one of the things that we looked at, for instance, are the drop boxes of the libraries. So are there, so analogous to that, are there things that are functional at the library that we can make into art? And so that might be something to think about as well.
I still love the art decorating you get to do. I know that that's not official art, but I still have pictures of it. So you're in the sorry, yes.
Yeah, if you don't mind me adding something, I think that there's also some great opportunity for collaboration between departments here. I think about like if I'm writing on the Greenbelt, I can look over and there's public art on the library. It's adding to me as a Greenbelt user or a transportation user and the library at the same time. And there's dual purpose things that are out there. I think there's a lot of really, really cool opportunities. I'd love to be, you know, whether I'm riding a bike or walking somewhere, seeing something that lets me know that there's a library in the area that kind of serves both purposes. And so I think that there's maybe some fun potential collaboration opportunities out there as well. And especially you're talking about even like useful stuff, book drop-offs. You know, again, anyone who walks by that's really helpful for the library, that's a cool thing, even if they're not using the library at the same time. So I think that's a super exciting thing to do it.
I've talked a little bit, but I need to meet with Lindsay and really better understand the construction that's happening here. And are there opportunities in the construction or where the library connects to the Locksmith Center or the pathways? Are there wayfinding opportunities, for instance, where art could help knit that space together a little bit better?
I think about opportunities to draw attention to it too. I was surprised as you were going through the art in the library specifically. Here at the Main, I was familiar with one, but not two of the others that I probably have walked by a million times and never noticed. So I don't know if there are opportunities. I know we do fun things with scavenger hunts or other things around the library, but drawing attention to that connection with the art too, and promoting that awareness in and around the buildings throughout the materials, whether it's even just having photographs of them embedded in materials, but just to draw that attention to it, because I don't think I even realize all the pieces that exist or maybe rotating in and through the libraries.
You'll be having a little walking, a little tour, brochure It's about the art of the library branches. Featuring that somehow. Yeah, I don't think we feature it on the website, so feature the art on the website somehow. Another thing to do.
I had one last thought about, and I don't know where it would go, but something kind of interactive that relates back to the sense of community and placemaking. Like, it's always cool to have interactive artwork, although I don't. Sure, there's pros and cons. But yeah, I mean, that's a great example of it's also created a kind of a community space.
Mhm. Definitely. There's places where it becomes an outdoor patio for the kids. You know, is there a way to do something that's more kid-like out there for increasing participation in those outdoor spaces? Or the exterior patio here, we talked a little bit about potentially that could be more engaging.
I will tell you, my kids climb on the piece that's right outside that door every single time we're here. Whether it was intended for that or not.
I was like, there's probably pros and cons to that approach.
Are there many items commemorating famous writers who are based in Idaho, like Anthony?
No,
Bourdain?
there's nothing. Yeah. It's a
I
great,
think there's some good candidates.
awesome idea. Thank you. Well, just to give you an idea of the next steps, I'll be working on this plan through August. And then that'll be shared with our public art team. Right now, they're in the middle of some other really large projects, so there probably won't be motion on public art to libraries right away. But this is identified as a priority due to the recognizing the lack of investment that we've done in the libraries, particularly the main library. So I'll be working with our public art staff to identify budget and projects to move forward in the coming years. So thank you for your time and attention. And if anything else comes up, please share it with Jessica and she'll share it back. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Now, that takes us to item B in new business. A temporary adjustment of service hours at Cole and Newstead and at Hillcrest. The need for this is somewhat tied to Sean. There's going to be improvement activities going on, capital improvement activities going on that requires temporary changes to the library hours. Jessica, I think you're covering this.
This will be a group effort with Emily Johnson and Sarah Kelly Chase. Came up, we do everything that we possibly can to not close the building to the public while we're doing some of these investments. But sometimes, particularly when you're working on the floor, we are in a place where we are asking for approval for a temporary closure of these facilities. So Emily will start with sort of what that means from us, the stuff, and then Sarah will talk about what that means for the staff.
Well, I'm lovingly referring to this as the branch beautification. So the downtown libraries is the only one who needs a little love. So we are looking at replacing the flooring at Hillcrest and at Cole and Stick, both very needed. So Cole and Stick is coming up the most recent. It'll be at the end of this month. We are asking to close the branch for, I think the dates are
August 1st through August
5th, 6th, sorry, that's the weekend. Yes, so the staff will provide curbside service, but with the market, and Sean alluded to this, it is difficult to get some people to do some of the work. There's a cost-effective aspect to it, and there's also just the labor and time it takes to pull books, floor half of the building, put them back, pull more books, floor the other half. It's just easier if we can close for those days. They'll remove all the furniture, replace all the flooring. So the carpet will be all replaced. And then I don't know if you are familiar, but there's cork on one half of the building and the computers. We're going to replace that as well. That does not work all the time. So then we will move everything back in and reopen. It'll take a couple of days and all the flooring will be replaced in by another 15 years, 20 years, depending on how well we can do that. And then Hillcrest, and we're kind of taking.
I just want to highlight something because we're so familiar with it. Cole and Stick, because it has multiple entrances, we are able to do curbside during that time. So that means that you can still come to the library and we can get books, the book drop will be open as well, because that we can do that off of one entrance, so we won't be involved in this. That's an important distinction between the closure for stick and the closure. So I just wanted to wanted to highlight that before.
Cool, you stick, we'll be able to use back a house, because the flooring there is fine, but yes, thank you. And then Hillcrest is coming up later the following month, and unfortunately, they are set up with the really only way in the building is to walk on tile that needs to be replaced, so we are asking to close that branch for a week. And we will we actually are laying tile over the existing tile and then redoing all of the carpet in that entire building as well. Again, very, very needed. And because of how it's set up, there's no access for the public to pull on the call and wait for curbside. So that staff isn't able to operate. But in the long run, it's going to save us money and work and time. And we'll actually be able to get through the projects a little bit quicker. So we feel we are reducing the impact to the public by doing it this way versus kind of kicking the can down the road and doing several iterations. So, and then Sarah and I have worked with the staff of those branches. What's going to happen when they close?
So people-wise, everyone's still working. They'll be working in a variety of capacities. So they'll have options at Pull and Stick, especially. They'll need at least 3 to 4 people in the building, all the hours that we're open to do curbside, still process courier, process holds. All of our other locations are happy to take on help with shelving, check-in, desk coverage. There's some great opportunities for training across the system for both of those closures. We've got the new sorter people can come take a look at. Staff will have the opportunity to shadow in departments maybe they aren't familiar with or they're interested in if they haven't done programming. So we're going to keep everyone really busy. We are also giving you the option, of course, this is an easy time. If you want to take vacation time, that's great. Total choice. No one is obligated to do that. So I think it'll be a really nice opportunity for some cross-training across the system and some more familiarity again across locations. As far as, and I don't know if either of you are going to tackle this piece, we've got signage in the works, we've got social media in the works, so we'll do a lot of messaging to the community before it happens, and then emphasize services are still available across the system. They may not just be what you normally get. Yeah.
We're going to need to vote on this, so it's important we get any questions addressed before we vote. Anybody have any questions? That hasn't been covered in this discussion.
I'm assuming any programming that was already scheduled during that time has been canceled or shifted or already accounted for, so that's all taken care of.
And same with meeting rooms, those are blocked up so the public doesn't get a surprise.
Is there a motion to approve the closure plan for the improvements that we just discussed?
I move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That's 3. Motion carried. Okay, the last,
I just want to say thank you, because these guys worked really hard to try to come up with, I think, it was plan A and then plan B and then plan C.
We're like a G or F.
Really trying to do everything we could to minimize disruption to the public, but also just when we knew that we could lock down, having these crews come do this work to do it just as quickly as possible. So I just want to thank everybody for being flexible, and particularly we will be able to really start communicating to the public, because it will be a beautification project that everyone will be so excited when it's done, but we thank people.
okay, next item is selection of a trustee to review payment vouchers for the coming month. And that's me. I'm happy to do that. I have some travel that's going to have me out of internet and even phone coverage for a while during that period. So I'll get with Carrie and look at my calendar. I may need help for 1 week. So we'll look for an email, see if you guys can help me out for 1 week. And the next regular meeting was scheduled to be on August 9th. The only person who was able to participate in the meeting on August 9th was me. And I, due to my travel plans, I just discussed, was gonna show up unprepared. So, we decided, it's best to move the meeting. We are obligated to have a meeting in August. And I think we've cleared with everyone that August 16th works. The three of us can all make it and conduct the library's business on behalf of the city on that day, August 16th. I know it works for me.
That works. Yes.
Okay. So the next regular meeting will be at the regular hours, 11:30 till 1 roughly, on August 16th. Any other issues or questions? We need to vote. Oh, we need to vote on that. Okay. I'll make the motion I just made. We move the meeting to August 16th. Is there a second? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried, and I think unless there's any other topics, we can adjourn the meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Aye. Thank you very much.